Thanks everybody for attending tonight. So we'll go ahead and get started with our March meeting for the commission. So first we'll go ahead with the roll call.
Okay, I will do that. So Kathy Boyle is present. I've not seen Nakia Burton Tucker. Denise DeSimone is present. Denise, I don't think I'm saying your last name. You're gonna have to at some point pull me aside and tell me how I'm not saying your last name correctly, because I think I heard you say it and I didn't. It doesn't sound like the way I say it. But anyway, help me out at some point. The Jam Hammond, I have not seen Jam yet. I'm here. Sue Kerr is not present. Bruce Krause is not present. Both of them have notified me that they would not make it. Maria Montano, is Maria here? I can't see all the participants.
I don't believe Maria's here right now.
Okay.
Maria's not here.
Okay, thank you. Lenny is here. Lenny Orbovich. Richard Parsakian is here. Shantae Porter is not here. Christopher Robinson is here. Marcus Robinson is here. Sarah Rosso has notified us that she will not be able to make it. Derek Tynes has notified us that he will not be able to make it. Guillermo Velasquez is not here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, you are. I hear your voice. Guillermo is here. Guillermo Velasquez. Thank you, Guillermo. Yeah, we have quorum. We're above quorum.
All right. So moving along to the reading and approval of the February minutes. So first we take a motion, right, Billy? And take questions.
Yeah, I'll move to adopt the February minutes. And then if there's a second, we can make corrections.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Kathy. Any questions or comments on the minutes from last month?
I need to make one correction. I don't have Christopher Robinson listed as present, so I will add his name to the list of commissioners who are present at the February meeting. My error in not having his name on there.
Any other questions or comments? All right, so then we can move ahead with a vote.
Yes.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
objections? Abstentions? Okay, I believe that passes.
Yes. Thank you.
So moving through to the reports of the officers, boards, and standing committees. So the first one was the Pirates meeting report, and the next meeting, I don't think Sue sent me her notes on that one. I don't know if Billy or anyone else who was there would like to speak to it.
Lenny, do you want to start? I think you were there.
I was, Billy. Did we schedule the next meeting? I know we agreed to it. I don't remember if we settled on a date or not.
I don't think so.
I don't think we did either. It was a pretty positive meeting. We kicked around a lot about what we thought worked and needed improved about last year's Pride Night. There was some discussion about what they were going to do this year for Pride. I don't have notes in front of me, so I don't exactly remember what all we covered. We got an update on their training, and they're still continuing with that. Hugh Lane's involved, and they seem very happy with the progress they've made. We talked a lot about them needing training around the players. There's some concern around whether or not the players will be willing to participate in Pride Night. There was an indication that some of them would not be, which was a concern. So we talked about how maybe we could do some outreach and training with the roster itself, which, is dicey considering their contract situations and everything. But a lot of it hinged on what they would be able to do during spring training. But overall, it was a pretty positive meeting, and we agreed to meet again and continue our discussions around Pride. And we seem to have a really good, positive working relationship with the team. I don't know, Billy, am I leaving anything else out?
That's from my memory, an accurate assessment of it. I do want to just, and I agree complete with your characterization that it was very positive. I think what is truly really positive, I was trying to think of something to say other than the word positive again, but I couldn't. But what I thought was wonderful about their presentation to us is the number of times that they did talk about the need for training of staff, not just the on-field, superstars, the wonderful athletes, but everybody in the organization, including the employees who staff the stadium, because there are a lot of employees that interact with the public, that are closer to the public, and the need for diversity training and sensitivity training for them was expressed by the Pirate leadership that was at the meeting without prompting, and with really what seemed to be some pretty deep understanding of the issue and why that type of training was important, as well as being pretty frank about some of the resistance to that from some employees, but that they have had some success in overcoming and dissolving some of that resistance. But they have a good ways to go, and they know that. They were, I think, pretty sober about what the world looks like right now. And but it was heartening. It was good in the way that there were a lot of things that just didn't need to be explained when, in other meetings, sometimes with organizations, when you're a contingent of queer people and you're having that type of interaction, that there's a lot of explaining that needs to be done. And in this case, there was less so. So I thought that was pretty good.
And I'd like to say, Billy, that I felt they said yes to everything. I mean, they never seemed to say, oh, no, we can't do that. They were like, well, let's figure it out. Or, I was impressed.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, they were really, really both aware of and intend to avoid any kind of slip ups like we've seen with some of the NHL teams around their Pride nights. So which was really, in my opinion, was positive. They're aware of the issues that need to be addressed. And Billy's right. There were other areas around training where they had some concerns, but on the whole, they've been pretty comprehensive with that, and they're certainly moving in the right direction. It's, I bring up the players mostly because that was a sticking point for them, and an area of concern because that's the most public facing part of the organization. And again, like they've seen what's happened with some of the NHL teams, and you can play 2 nights, and some of them haven't gone as smoothly as I'm sure the teams would like. So they're trying to avoid that sort of situation, which I think makes sense.
Any questions or comments from anyone else on this? And Lynn, did you say we haven't scheduled the next meeting with them for yet?
Honestly, Marcus, we might have, but I don't have my notes in front of me, and I don't remember. I know we talked about another meeting, and it was supposed to be within about a month, but I can't remember if we settled on a day or not. Sorry.
No worries. I'll follow up with Sue just to make sure. And then, if anyone else on the commission is interested.
I would imagine she knows.
Yeah. Nothing else on that one. Then we can move to the next one, commissioner terms and attendance. So Ida Morgan, you've been working on some things here. So I don't know if you want to give us an update on some of your progress there.
Yeah, so you, Marcus, Lenny, and Jam, your reappointments have been submitted to council. So whoop whoop, yay. Otherwise, there aren't any other updates regarding that. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, there is at least one seat that is open. So we're just looking for other candidates to bring in to this group here, but otherwise we're just moving on ahead.
And Billy, is it 1 or 2 seats open?
Well, there's not a absolutely defined number of seats on the commission. We have had 17. That was a number that we reached. We went back to 16 when Britton Mauck resigned from the commission. So we have 16 right now. That seat, if the mayor considers it vacant, that's good news. Then it can be filled. And but we also have, one commissioner who has not been present since before we have adopted our bylaws in July of 21 and has not been present at any meeting since then. So that also needs to be addressed. But I think that Morgan and the mayor's office are aware of that. We've communicated that a number of times. So I think potentially there are 2 vacant seats.
Thanks, Billy.
And then Billy, I can't remember, I'm looking through the notes just what we want to talk about for attendance. Anything missed there?
No, I think folks are pretty good at notifying me at this point, so that I can keep accurate attendance. I want to be accurate in our minutes. Of course, my mistake on missing one commissioner at the last meeting will be corrected. I don't upload the minutes to our Google Drive until they've been adopted by the commission. So right now, all the minutes for our commission from January 23 back to September 21 are in folders, as well as our agenda are in folders on our Google Drive. And they're in PDF form and ready for a placement on our webpage on a documents tab if we establish that, which I think is something we need to do because they should be publicly accessible. That will be a permanent record of attendance of the commissioners because it's noted in the minutes of who was present each time. I separately keep a record of it to inform the co-chairs of the attendance of the commissioners so that they can fulfill their duties in reminding commissioners who might be absent without notification. But I think things are working pretty well. We have actually a pretty good, even though we're a little nervous about quorum, we have a really pretty good track record. There's only been 2 times where quorum interrupted us. One time we didn't hold a meeting and one time we ended a meeting early because we lost quorum during the meeting. But other than that, we've done well, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. And I have a call with Dave from IMP early next week. So I'll have him, I think what I can do is I can just give him the link to the Google Drive. So that way, once you upload it, they'll just be able to access them. All right.
It could be, well, I'll say it now since we touched on the issue. We do have a vacant outreach coordinator position, one of the 6 officers. That person would be more close to monitoring the web page and maybe having some input on the design of it. But I think we should have someone on the lead of working with the city tech people on how we want our page to look also. And in the absence of a coordinator, I'm fine with being a contact on that since I'm familiar with all our documents. There's other things we need to have accessible on our webpage that we've produced, and there should be someone in contact with the people who are going to upload and start placing things.
So I also just want to throw this out there to let folks know Apologies for being a little late. Was in a meeting with the mayor, but glad to be here tonight with you all. We're in the final stages of the RFP process to get a new content management system for the city's website, which is going to require us to do some, some work on the back end and the front end, and doing some work there. I think design wise for what this means for us is hopefully a better experience for the end user, easier to find us on the city website and navigation wise from that perspective. But also moving forward, I think hopefully a more streamlined, easier way for us to get content up onto the website, because right now it's a custom system that we utilize for this, so we're really excited about this.
That's good to know. That's very exciting. And Billy, what I'll do is I'll connect you with Smythe, or I'll send you a quick email. We can just map out what we want on the page already. And then we can just tell Smythe, I think that's how you pronounce it.
Sorry, busy day at City Hall. Apologies if I keep popping in and out.
No worries. I can imagine always something happening. So we can just map out what we want to go on what page, and then he can help us set it up and put it on the page. So we can at least have that there for people if they happen to find it.
Yeah. Billy, are you whoever is going to be doing that? Are folks connected with Smitty, the person who does that for us? I can connect the folks together.
I think Marcus is connected.
I do. Oh yeah, that's the one who I've been working with to get the webpage up. So we can work with them to get all of that on there. Nothing else on that one. Moving on to the treasurer's report. I think Denise, was this yours?
Yep. I'm not sure how to do this, Billy, but I would suggest that as there's expenses, needs that arise, maybe the better solution is to let me work with Patrick or whoever in the city as we have an expense need. Because I think we're going to sit in this, the budget isn't defined, and so I think it might be better for us if somebody needs something printed, that I could go to Patrick and have him point me in the direction of the department within the city that I could maybe ask for those things printed or something like that. I don't think we're gonna, I think until we have an expense that we want to push through or to ask if we could get resources, we're going to be sitting in there is no budget mode.
Well, I think you're very wise to present it that way. I think that we should, just move forward. Maybe when we're in person next month, that will help us to sort of energize around being more action oriented than just meeting oriented. And because I know, and we're going to talk about it later today, but we started last time about our presence at community events, but in particular Pride events, the very large number that already were listed, and the things that we might need when we do sort of our ambassadorship activities in the community. As well as the things in our goals that we want to map out and start accomplishing. And that when we need something, we should identify what we need. And Denise, yes, we should go to you and you communicate it to Patrick and say, look, this is our plan for this activity and it needs to be supported. What can the city do for us? And both Bruce and the mayor have indicated that there are different ways to support and fund things, and that we should be proactive in making requests. So I think we should just assume we have an infinite budget and ask for what we need. And because that's kind of the message we got, I think. And let's ask for what we need. And if it happens, it happens. But Yeah, I think you're absolutely right to take that posture, and I think we should look at it as a positive.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, the stuff for Pride, I mean, I can personally design stuff and I'm not, so maybe next month we do talk about it in person and if anybody wants to submit a need, I can just see what I can do with it. I think other than that, there's no defined budget.
Any questions on any of that or comments?
No,
Guillermo, were you gonna say something?
no, I said no. No.
Okay. So then moving on to the secretary's report, I don't believe we have anything here.
No, I pretty much did it in assisting with attendance above. And the only other thing, and I said I'd do this before, so now I'm really going to do it since I'm embarrassed that I didn't, is send out a list of all the meeting dates for the remainder of 2023. They are the third Thursday of each month, but I'll put it into a calendar document and send it to all the commissioners.
Sounds good. And then Denise, I think you talked a little bit about some of the outreach stuff. I don't know if anything else to add to the input on community events.
Just a reminder, if there's things on social that anybody wants us to post, just, let me know what that is. And if there's any events that you think are worth listing out for the public, we can definitely post those events as well.
That's great.
So Denise, do we send that directly to you only? So we don't have everybody, reply all kind of things going on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to, take it directly. It's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions on that or the process for it? Moving on then, the vacant outreach coordinator position. So I think we talked about that a little bit already, but there is a vacant position if anyone's interested. Feel free to send myself or anyone an email. We could talk about that further and what that could look like. All right. So moving on to the next section, we have a guest presenter with us today, Megan. So I'll turn it over to Megan to talk a little bit to us from the Fair Housing Partnership. So all yours.
Thank you very much, Marcus. It's exciting. I can't believe it's already March and we're discussing 2023 Pride. I remember when we were on the North Shore before it went downtown. And I'm sure there are those of you who remember before that as well, but I'm excited to see what we produce this year as we start to stabilize a little bit after COVID-19. My name's Megan Confer-Hammond. I'm the Executive Director of the Fair Housing Partnership of Greater Pittsburgh. I won't take up too much of your time tonight, but I really appreciate the opportunity to engage and talk. I really am excited that this commission exists and that in the fair housing space, we are looking to push forward in 2023. We've spent a lot of time due to COVID-19 in a state of stasis, And there's a lot of exciting outcomes, I think, that we can see happen in Pittsburgh moving forward. So just to explain, is that FHP is a private nonprofit, and we contract with the Department of Housing and Urban Development and their Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity as a fair housing organization. FHP advocates on behalf of victims of housing discrimination, whereas the Pittsburgh Commission on Human Relations is a neutral fact finder. So FHP and PCHR are wonderful collaborators, and Jam and I, even though we have no relation between our last names, are good friends and professional collaborators on the fair housing events that you'll see happening in April. But I want to be here tonight. Two overall topics I want to share with you all for your thought and consideration. Is one, I just want to make sure you know, we've had a bit of sort of whiplash, if you will, with where things have stood with the federal government regarding the LGBTQIA protections. And so I want to make sure that everyone here is aware, is that we certainly have gender identity and sexual orientation as protected classes within the city of Pittsburgh. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for Bruce Cross's leadership, where, if you recall, the city of Pittsburgh had those protections within the definition of sex for a couple decades, or at least a decade, long before the protected classes proliferated through much of America. And then under Cross, we moved to have sexual orientation and gender identity as separate individual protected classes. On the federal level, since February of 2021, HUD has designated that within the definition of sex, following the Bostock Supreme Court decision, that the definition of sex federally now includes sexual orientation and gender identity. And what this means to this body and in the city of Pittsburgh is that any housing discrimination complaint investigated by JAM or filed by FHP at HUD and that is investigated by PCHR has dual filing capacity, which means that there is not only the hammer of city code, but there is the hammer of the Federal Fair Housing Act in the enforcement power behind that instance of discrimination. And so that had previously been in place and then rescinded, and now it is reenacted under the current federal administration. And so while we have it, and hopefully it moves forward in a more robust manner, it would take an act of Congress to add specific protected classes or to formally adopt the definition of sex. At this moment, I want everyone to be aware. So I've tried to do back in my younger years when I was had a bit more energy. I tried to do fair housing booths at Pride. And it turns out at Pride, no one really wants to talk about housing discrimination. It's not really the topic that everyone wants to engage in. And so it's the information that we want to have out there so that if housing discrimination does come up, that our community is aware of where and how to file a complaint and to move that forward. So just so you all know for your own networks, that we do have federal protections through executive action currently in the federal government. So two, one of the other things I want to raise here with this group is that, as you know, we have the development moving forward in Oakland known as Oakland Pride as an LGBTQIA plus affirming low-income housing for individuals who are 55 and older. And from the fair housing perspective, I am interested in collaborating with this commission, such as with the relevant working group, on how Oakland Pride can be intersectional. And what I mean by this is that nationally and in the city of Pittsburgh, unfortunately, what we've seen happen over the past 50 or 60 years is that senior housing as low-income housing is often, for race, a proxy for whiteness. Because what happens when there is a desire not to have low-income housing in communities is that those communities will then allow senior housing, because all communities have family members or friends who are elderly on fixed income who are interested in affordable senior housing. And so in the Fair Housing Act, is something we continue to address through affirmatively furthering fair housing, where we're looking for Pittsburgh's overall low-income housing market to be intersectional and to ensure that there's family size unit as well as units for seniors. But in this forum, what I'm looking to do is I have been impressed and excited about the leadership we've seen from Presbyterian Senior Care and from SAGE and their involvement. And knowing that all too often, through no fault of our own, that senior low-income housing is disproportionately housing white tenants compared to low-income housing for families, is that every housing development that is affordable, that receives federal funding, is required to submit a document called an affirmative fair housing marketing plan. And what this does is, if we know that the property is likely to house a certain demographic or certain identity, then the affirmative marketing plan is designed, or should be designed, to target individuals who are likely not to apply, in order to ensure that the wait list itself is diverse as humanly possible. So to be abundantly and completely clear, there's no consideration of a quota, no application is denied, but it is a targeted effort by the outreach effort to ensure that the application for the waitlist process is provided to a diverse and cross intersectional population as humanly possible. And so what we're looking at is both to make sure that within our community of LGBTQIA+, that not only are all the identities represented as robustly as possible, but that we're also identifying seniors of color, LGBTQIA+ seniors of color, in order to have a diverse tenant population once the building is developed and then the tenants move in. And so in order to do that, given that we know who is likely to apply and how the building tends to be inhabited once the wait list is addressed in the initial stages, it requires intentional actions in how the marketing plan is created, as well as at this point in society, modernizing the marketing plan. Is the marketing plan on Facebook and Instagram as opposed to simply paper applications? And so the second half of this conversation that I've been having has been that once we create a tenant population that is diverse, is we all know the reality that you put a diverse group of people together and the result, the long-term interactions are not devoid of conflict. Human nature is to have conflict, we'll have conflict. And HUD FHEO has issued guidance that no tenant-on-tenant harassment is permitted on the basis of a protected class, on the basis of identity. So sex, disability, race, and so on. And so what happens is, once a housing provider is made aware that there's tenant-on-tenant harassment occurring on the basis of identity or a federally designated protected class, that housing provider is obligated to intervene in the same or similar way as to how they intervene for any material lease violation. And so what I hope to see is that we can help Presbyterian Senior Care establish a diverse tenant population within the property, and then have a robust tenant-on-tenant harassment policy that provides top-down inclusivity for management, where it's clear amongst the tenants that any dispute between tenants, if I loaned someone some money for groceries or gave someone a ride, that any of those disputes that happen amongst human beings is wholly and entirely about the issue and does not become about identity amongst those tenants. And so these policies, a current and modernized affirmative marketing plan, tenant-on-tenant harassment policies are still somewhat new. And so I'm interested if anyone if there's a working group or members of this commission who are interested and it's appropriate for working together to create these robust and potentially model policies for our city and region for promoting Oakland Pride as not simply LGBTQIA+ affirming, but being a driver behind intentional intersectionality in the tenant population, as well as addressing what an inclusive tenant community means through the policies in which the management is ensuring that the tenant engagement doesn't allow for discrimination amongst the individuals as well. So I appreciate your time. And if you have any thoughts or questions, I'm free for it. And glad to meet and talk, and I can talk about fair housing for hours. So if you're interested, my family and friends are no longer interested in hearing me talk about it. And I am glad to go down the rabbit hole discussing where we're at and where we hope to go in Pittsburgh.
Megan, hi, I'm Kathy Boyle. I'm on the advisory committee for the Oakland Pride project. And I'd be very interested in working with you around this, if there's any way I can be helpful.
That sounds wonderful. I really appreciate it. I do my best to create policies and documents, and sometimes sitting in your own echo chamber, whatever you write sounds reasonable. And so I need some outside voices and fact checkers and feedback on, creating the kind of marketing plan and harassment policies that we feel will be meaningful as a means of moving the needle for what diversity and inclusion means for people to live together. So I'll certainly follow up.
Great.
Thanks for sharing, Megan. I'd definitely be happy as well to talk more about it. I work at the URA and focus on a lot of the affordable housing compliance after project completion. So, looking at the demographic information and the marketing plans and all of that. So for a selfish reason as well, just to make sure ways that I can help property managers and tenants be more inclusive as well, but also, offer help with policy development and that. So, but it's very exciting. I think that's really great. Just thinking about that goal of that intentionality around it. That's great.
I appreciate that, Marcus, and I'll definitely follow up as well. As you know, the affirmative fair housing marketing plan it's a federal requirement, and so everyone does it. But we can use our roles in the city to make it meaningful at the local level, and to ensure that what it's doing locally is something that reflects our values and where we want to see our city, what we want to see our city become. And so it's on the ground impact requires us locally to look at them and to move them forward in terms of what they can be. So I'll certainly follow up with you as well. I appreciate that.
Megan, this is Commissioner Guillermo Velasquez, and I am the Executive Director of the Pittsburgh Hispanic Development Corporation. We do have a housing initiative, so we work with the Latino community. We do have some LGBT clients from the community that we have served in housing. So, we see a lot of things that go on in our community in terms of discrimination. And I have been in contact previously with some folks from the city about some complaints that we have tried to initiate. So I'll be more than happy to work with you and actually get another member on my team to be part of your efforts so that we can contribute to the cause.
I appreciate that. And to let you know is we're busy at work with different policy changes to make particularly our low-income housing more robust with how we're serving diverse populations. And I'll also follow up with what we're starting to move is a language access plan that ensures that there's a baseline of language access amongst our federally funded housing providers as well, because our population statistically has limited individuals who had limited English proficiency. But in order to grow our population, diversity and inclusion is not an ideology, it's economics. In order to grow our population where we're hemorrhaging the loss of people, is we must attract and then retain diverse populations. And so we're also working on a language access plan to disseminate amongst our federally funded housing providers.
Yeah, just so to add quickly to that, we're very aware of that. That's a big problem that we have in our community. So we're actually trying to address it, but we see a lot of deficiencies. We do access to rentals and home ownership. And so, we have to be accommodating access language for people so they can have the same level of advantages that most people have. And a lot of the government programs that exist do not provide some of that. And if they do, it's very cumbersome to actually be able to go through the entire process because of the language access.
Absolutely. So we have a lot of work to do. And I don't want to see LGBTQIA plus affirming property to then become a sub out of a different protected class. And so I am very interested in the work that you are doing towards that project in being an example of what it means to be intersectional, where we're not addressing one group of people at any given time, but everybody, to make sure that the property is open to individuals with difficulty with English, with of different races and national origins, as well as LGBTQ+IA identities. So I appreciate all of y'all's support, and it's nice to be in a group where it's not contentious for a minute, and to know that we'll move it forward together and get some work done.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, I want to thank Megan for attending and sharing all that really important and just very important information, and to allow my brain to absorb some of it. It certainly is, I think, this commission is founded on principles of intersectionality. And in order for that to be meaningful, when things are happening in the real world, you know, that we should be present for it and supportive of it and help to guide it. And I think all the issues you brought up regarding housing and how things unfold, unless there's proactive efforts to support diversity so that everyone has an opportunity for access to low-income housing when they're older, that in an environment that is welcoming, that's tough work. And without energy putting it into it, it will default to the way that you described. So I'm glad you are here to express that so that it's in the forefront of our brains and explicit. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy, for your kind words. I appreciate it.
I was just going to ask, is there like a point of contact on the commission that commissioners and Megan should be working through to make sure that we keep the conversation going?
Yeah, I can act as that point of contact and you know, connect you with any of the commissioners that you need, or if any questions as you come up that you would like us to think about and that we could bring up. And you know, I think we could definitely consider forming a working group and such to help out, you know, or explore any other policy recommendations.
Careful giving me your email, Marcus. I'll email you a lot, but I'll be glad to work together. That'd be great.
Sounds good. I'll send that right after. Okay, and if commissioners have any questions come up as well, it's a two-way street, so I'll forward that along as well. Yeah, excited to work together. I think it's a really exciting initiative, and you know, it could be a great model for future developments as well to use some of these policies, especially around language access and just tenant recruitment and things. So thank you for your time, Megan. We appreciate it. All right, Billy, if you want to share you wouldn't mind sharing the screen again.
Okay. And let's see. How does that look? Denise let me know that you could see my desktop somehow. Is that still true?
I can't see your desktop right now.
You're
Okay.
good.
All right, thanks. I mean, there's nothing that would embarrass me on it, so I'm not particularly worried, but it is a little cluttered. but I'm glad you can't see that.
I always use Word docs, so perfect. The next one is reports of special committees. So the working group on the city council relationships. So I know we had that meeting with the post agenda meeting with the city council on February 22nd. I was not able to attend, but based on the emails that circulated about, it sounded like it went really well. It was very productive. I think a couple of people were there. If they want to share just your reactions and experience on it. Okay. No, if no, no
Well, I don't
comments.
want to leave, since this is live streamed, right, and recorded, I don't want the entire universe that has potentially could be watching right now to think that the meeting wasn't positive. I would assess it at positive. I'm just reluctant to speak on everything. And so I was trying to do wait time to give other people space, but I don't want to leave it with nothing. I think it was a good meeting. I'm glad that we went forward with it. I think that there was a lot of interaction there was a good number of council members that were present. It was a small number that didn't show, and that's unusual for the agenda review. So there was interest in it, and there was a good amount of interaction between the commissioners who were present and the council members. And as Bruce Krause had said, it's the beginning of a regular relationship rather than just a one and done type thing. But I thought it was very positive, and we were able to get into the record. Bruce did ask me to read certain things so that they were into the record, including our goals. But then there was some good discussions that happened also. I think we were there for 2 hours or so. Some of you were
Yes,
there.
and if I may add to that, I think it was important for council members to understand the work that has been done so far by the commission and the areas that we have developed of importance for the region at different levels. I think some of them they know about it, but I think realizing that they could be directly involved it's important. I think more than anything, being able to establish that relationship, and however working relationship that this may go into the next steps, it was the beginning of something that would definitely turn into something positive for the city.
I'll agree. I thought it was a really good, productive meeting. Lots of good conversation. Some good ideas spawned from that, including Billy possibly shooting a lifeguard recruitment video for our new upcoming summer season at the pools, is finding ways for our community to get involved in making our pools safe for all of the members of our community. We're a quiet group tonight. My goodness.
We are. No, but that sounds like it's really good. That's good to hear that there was some positive energy, and I think the start of building a great relationship. A lot of opportunities for collaboration.
I fully expect in the transcript for the next meeting minutes to read awkward long pause of silence here.
Well, Marie, if you want me to say something, I attended by Zoom because I couldn't get down there. I was very impressed with the interaction between City Council and the commissioners, and the commissioners that did ask questions were very pointed and very precise. And I was very thrilled that there was a really good communication between the City Council and the commissioners. So I think we're at a good start. for moving forward with the commission. And if this happens, will this happen monthly? How often will this happen?
I don't think that's defined yet.
Okay.
I think that's a good point, Richard. We could, I think we can keep that in mind to, we don't want to lose momentum. So just keeping in mind having some kind of semi-regular connections with them just to touch base and discuss any initiatives they're pursuing or ways that we could collaborate. Do people have maybe a preference for frequency, what that would look like? What might make sense?
I think having a quarterly meeting will be, a good time frame. And I think it will allow us to connect with those commissioners that might have not been present. I think there are items that were identified as follow-up. I think we should make sure that we work on them so that next time we meet, we can continue the progress of where, more than anything, within the mission and the goals of the commission, because to make sure that we are achieving them in collaboration with them.
That's a good point. I think that makes sense. Any other comments? Questions?
I'm not sure who may have agreed to be part of a working group on city council relationship. I know Sue was, trying to get some energy into that, but I don't want to speak from her. I kind of remember her not saying she wasn't the lead on it, but was trying to encourage people to be part of that. But anyway, that's the place that I think that should happen. And maybe who might be interested in this quarterly meetings and how to make them productive so that we and build a relationship with city council members that we could do that in a working group.
So just while we're on the topic of working groups, just trying to think through also how many working groups we have currently. Because it might make sense just to maybe also kind of strategize that could be a larger part of a mission for a working group, intergovernmental relations or something like that. Just trying to think through all the working groups and balancing everyone's time commitments and things. So I think we have, for my own personal notification, just noting out the working groups. So I think we have the community outreach or social media working group, maybe it's social media.
Yeah, I think, yes, there is a outreach working group that is, associated with the outreach coordinator. That is one that we identified. I don't know that it's just limited to social media, but maybe it is defined that way.
Yeah, I think it had originally been intended to be broader. And then we have the treasury working group or treasurer's working group.
Yes, I think that working group was related to designing a budget.
Yeah.
And then the one we'll talk about in a second, the human services work group. And then are there any other ones that I'm missing?
Well, I think we could, separate from this meeting, take inventory. I'll review our minutes. They're all captured in the minutes over the last 18 months.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, that would be helpful, just so we can, I think just kind of making sure we make sure we're catching all the groups that align with our strategic plan and everything. And that way we can make sure where people have the opportunity to join the ones they want or expand groups purposes if that makes sense.
I think so. I think it's one or two or three were consolidated. If that made sense, it would be more efficient on scheduling.
Okay.
If I may, I'd like to make a suggestion, perhaps to the executive team to discuss a possible plan to establish this collaboration with City Council. I'm just so that we just don't forget about it and we find ourselves a quarter after and trying to figure it out. And we lose momentum of that meeting that happened. I'm not sure if, what will be the best approach, whether one person is identified to be a liaison or something like that. But I think it needs to be in a separate meeting where perhaps can be discussed and see what will make more sense so that we don't lose that momentum that we already created.
I think that's a great point. I think, I think that's where it would be helpful having these working groups where we could have that kind of responsibility focused on and internally designate that liaison. Because just thinking through, we had the meeting with the Director Smith of Public Safety. And at that meeting, he had identified a couple different liaisons for other purposes as well. So just given, as we're starting to scale up and do more, that we're spreading the workload as much as we can. So having these working groups could be a good way to help with that and internally designating who has the capacity to be liaisons for different things and have that responsibility. So what we can do is once Billy looks through the minutes and can share that list, I can send it out to the group and make some recommendations in terms of either consolidating or what could be good scopes of works for the different working groups and see who's interested. And then that way we can start to designate that responsibility for working with being liaisons for different city officials or council and things like that. If that sounds like a good plan.
Yes, and I agree with Guillermo regarding the executive committee taking up the specific issue of the relationship with City Council. And it's also the case that if any commissioner wants to attend the executive committee meetings, the first Thursday of the month at 6 o'clock, you're invited. It's not a closed meeting.
Any other questions or comments before moving on? So then I would just recommend maybe we table B under this reports until we get that working groups and then review those scopes and then make some proposals. So then that way it makes sense to set up a meeting date and time. All right. If no questions or comments there, moving on to unfinished business. So the first one, in-person meetings. So I reached out to INP and they are able to record our in-person meeting for April 20th, if I got that date correct, that third Thursday. So our thought was that we could hold that April meeting in person at the City County building on the 6th floor conference room. Correct me if I get that wrong, Morgan. But that way we could hold that one there. Perfect. And then Guillermo, Dave is getting back to me some dates for the doing a site visit. So our kind of rescheduling that maybe would make sense to do PHDC sometime in September or October for an in-person meeting. I know it's far ahead, but
Sure,
just
no
so you-
problem.
Okay. So once Dave gets back to that on me, we can confirm that. But in terms of that April 20th meeting at 5:30 at the City County Building, do people have any thoughts or objections to having that in person there? And it'll be hybrid as well for those who are unable to attend. But with the option at the 6th floor conference room.
I would like to see us move as soon as possible to have the option to have a live meeting. So if April works for most people, I think that would be great.
Yeah, I agree with that. We, in February, we made a motion and voted to have in-person meetings starting in March. So yeah, we already agreed that that's what our interest was. So yeah, I don't think we need to even adopt anything. I think that that's what we've already adopted, that's what we want to do. And I think that my understanding would be that we would continue to be there each month until we had a different site. So if somehow the 6th floor of the City County Building seems to be not accessible for us or the community in ways that other sites might be, that it's our task then to identify other sites. I think you said, Marcus, regarding Guillermo's organization's facility, I think you said later in the summer. I'm not exactly sure what you said, but that does leave, like May, June, July. I guess we're at the City County Building. That would be my assumption.
Yeah, if Morgan, we can, if you wouldn't mind looking to see 6th floor conference room, if that would be available for those leading up. Let's say we'll do PHDC in August or September, seeing if this, or let's say September, seeing if the conference room would be available in between.
Yeah, can do. Sorry, my dog she also wants to contribute.
No worries. Mine's sleeping next to me, so different energies. So that sounds good. So then we'll plan on the 6th floor conference room for our meetings. And if people, I know we start at 5:30, so I think just if that proves difficult or anything comes up, just let us know and we can adjust our schedule and have that discussion as needed.
Maria, can I ask what's happening to the renovation of the facility on the Boulevard of the Allies?
So 412 Boulevard of the Allies, that is a project that is ongoing and under construction. Our hope is to have that build out completed by some point this summer at the earliest. But that's all dependent on supply chains and everything related to construction related stuff.
So that could possibly be a site for meetings in the future?
Possibly. I'm not sure if there's going to be a large public meeting space there for that, but let me see what the possibilities are for that.
Okay, thank you.
And so one thing I wanted to say, where we're located, where the Hispanic Corporation is located, is a city building. So that location will always be available as a backup whenever you need it, and subject to coordinate a date and a time, no problem. Just let me know.
Other options we could look at if we wanted, if we really wanted to try to get a bunch of community members out to some of our meetings, could be something like the big room at the Shenley Park Ice Rink. There's a big community room there that we've hosted community meetings from as well. So there's some opportunities there in terms of if we wanted to try to do some aggressive outreach to bring community members to a meeting sometime.
Actually, that's a very good idea, because that was something that I mentioned before, where I think it's important that the commission starts interacting with community and community meetings that maybe are happening already. That would be a good way to start, letting people know what we're working on.
And I can look into, we're on the 9th floor of the 412 Boulevard building. And we have a conference room that might be able to hold everyone. So I can ask for the URA as well.
What do other commissions do? I mean, there's lots of other commissions. Where do they meet?
I believe commissions like this, most of them are completely virtual, not in person.
Right, the Gender Equity Commission is currently virtual and it has been since COVID.
Any other comments on this topic? Okay, moving to the next one. Pennsylvania, our local legislative or policy update on anti-LGBTQIA plus actions. I believe this was Sue's item. So there's been a lot of activity on this front. And Richard, you had shared a topic, I believe, recently, or an article.
And I forget what that article was. I need to be reminded.
I'm looking through my email now, see if I can find it.
There's so much activity going on, it's hard to keep up with the day-to-day anti-legislation policies trying to be put forward.
Just while I find the article that Richard had shared, any kind of articles or topics that people wanted to discuss that maybe we as commission could respond to?
Well, I think what we should do is, I mean, we have this, it's important, this unfinished business item B, the legislative policy update, really is to make sure that we continue to be looking for the things that pop up, not just in Harrisburg, but in school boards and other things. Sue has reported on several of them. Lenny has been a watchdog on this also. And I think that it really is, it's staying on, it's going to be unfinished business for the foreseeable future. And I think there are some things brewing in Harrisburg that are going to be very problematic. And we need to be aware of them. We've responded to them before, and I think we should continue to. So even if we're not on top of it right now for this meeting, that we just need to do that and be prepared to report out in each meeting. But so keep your eyes and ears open about it, and we'll inform each other and take action when we need to.
And I know one thing I know that had come up was the University of Pittsburgh hosting 3 events regarding the with very notably transphobic speakers and discussions coming up. And I think Sue had at some point circulated something asking whether we wanted to adopt a public stance for that to respond to the news.
Mr. TJ.
And I remember there's a lot of, like, for some crazy reason, a lot of anti-drag legislation happening all over the country. And I'm not sure if somebody in Harrisburg is trying to do that also, to ban public interaction between, story time at drag queen story time at a lot of the libraries have been getting a lot of pushback and a lot of death threats also. I've had friends involved in some happenings in Pittsburgh a few years ago, and we have to be vigilant of a lot of these hate groups that are trying to stop interaction between our community and children when it's not necessary, obviously. So.
I will say this, not in terms of specific legislation, but just to give a bit of a bright thing. Yesterday, the Visit Pittsburgh started unveiling elements of their 10-year master plan for tourism in the region. And they are moving forward with marketing Pittsburgh specifically as an LGBTQIA plus destination city as part of their strategic marketing plan. So I was really excited. The administration really pushed for that inclusion, as well as the inclusion of an African-American board of tourism as part of a broader idea around celebrating the diversity of the city in their marketing strategy for tourism. So just wanted to say that while we're limited in terms of what we can do legislatively wise, that the city across multiple sectors is committed to celebrating our experiences and our lives and the work that we do to fight for our rights here.
And I think a part of that, what Visit Pittsburgh is looking at, the arts community across the board celebrate and elevate LGBTQ artists and visiting artists from all over the world and all over the country. And I think that is something that we need to laud, that this is helps when people look at our city, how is it LGBTQ friendly? That is a big part of it in the arts community.
I really wish there was a chat because
Maria, I think you went on mute.
so I wish there was a chat box here, but if you look at visitpittsburgh.com/diverse-Pittsburgh, you can see all about their plans in terms of LGBTQIA plus travel in Pittsburgh, as well as their work to do some more work around Pride festivities and whatnot. So it's a pretty exciting thing for the city to be doing this, and for our tourism partners specifically to be marketing us in that fashion.
Thanks, Maria. Maybe if you could share, if you wouldn't mind sharing that, if you have that URL with the commission in the email. Thank you. Anything else before moving on? All right, the next one, Billy, I can't remember what this information request to the mayor for LGBTQI plus representation on city BACs, what the unfinished part of it was.
Well, it's only because I mean, it's not on the agenda necessarily to discuss, but rather get an update from the persons who were going to look into it. I know that last time Morgan had made comments about it. She did say that there might not be disaggregated data on this, but go ahead, Morgan. I won't speak for you.
No, you're absolutely right, Billy. Unfortunately, we still have a lot of more equity to push when it comes to collecting data. So that information is not available now, but that's not to say that we can't start doing that. So that's the update right there.
And Morgan, when new commissioner I think when we had talked with the mayor that there was maybe a form that was being used to sign up? Like, is that one
Yeah.
collecting demographic information?
Yes, so typically, and this is an announcement for anybody who's watching, we are really eager for Pittsburghers of all intersectional identities to apply to serve on all of our boards, authorities, and commissions. And it is called Engage PGH, and the specific page is called Interest in Volunteering with the City of Pittsburgh. And through that form, people can identify themselves with their intersectional identities. And that's just our way to make sure we're capturing all experiences across Pittsburgh. So that's our way to try to remedy data collection. But, you know, as I mentioned, unfortunately, that hasn't been the case before.
That's helpful to know. Thank you. Any questions or comments for Morgan on that? And then Maria, I just saw you come across, so thank you. So moving on to new business, 2023 LGBTQIA plus Pride events. I know that it's quickly approaching upon us, and lots of different events. I know one thing we had talked about was our level of participation, potentially at these different events, what we might envision that looking like and how, but just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, what I would like to recommend on these last two items, and I know that there's another one that Maria wants to maybe at least talk about for a moment regarding the video project. But for these two items, before we do that, the Pride events and the public comment, what I suggest we do is put them on the agenda for the executive committee for the first Thursday in April, and the executive committee can make a list of the Pride events that we know about and any information that we know about each of the Pride events, and have that ready for the April meeting on the 20th of April, so that we can spend a little bit of time talking about how commissioners might attend those, whether we do tabling, what we would need to get prepared to do any of that, rather than trying to figure that out in the last few minutes of this meeting. I think we need to do a little bit of prep work to have a more productive discussion on our participation or attendance at Pride events. But I think we've talked about it a couple times that we really want to do it, and we want to have the interaction with the community and be visible and invite interaction, so that we're learning from the community and they're learning that we exist too. But we need to do some prep work to do that. So I'm going to bring that up at our executive committee meeting, and we'll do some of the preparation work and then present at the April meeting.
Billy,
And send us stuff you want us to do regarding that too. Don't just be passive and say they're gonna. I mean, if you know about events, then let us know, and then, so we can do better work on the first Thursday. Go ahead, Richard. Thank you.
I believe I forwarded information about writing an article for the Pride Guide in Cuberg. They're doing a physical paper copy of this. Lisa Cunningham reached out to me for an article, but I wanted it to represent the commission, just not one person. Do you remember getting that information? I sent it about a month or so ago.
No.
Okay, I sent it to everybody. I'll try to dig it up and send it again. I know there was a time table of when these articles were needed, but she asked me very specific questions, but I felt uncomfortable just answering them myself. I felt it would be more powerful to have the commission represented in the Pride Guide, if that makes sense.
Yes, you're jogging my memory now, and yes. So
Does, yeah.
let's let's address it and see whether we have the capacity to do that.
Okay. And I'm sure, Maria, would be the kind of thing that they would ask the mayor for a letter. This is normally what publications do to support, Pittsburgh Pride.
Yep,
Prob-
you're correct. We're working on a letter for the Pride Guide.
Okay.
As well as answering the same questionnaire.
Yeah,
as well as-
So that would, did they say when they needed this by from the mayor?
Let me pull up the email here. Give me 2 seconds.
Okay. So that would be pretty much when they need the article. Okay,
Yeah, I was told April 15th was the deadline for us to have the letter done.
okay. So maybe we have still enough time for, I'll forward that. Billy, should I just send it to you? Would be easier that way, or how do you want to do it? I could resend.
I think sending it to everybody is a better idea, so that if someone is inclined to take the initiative on writing some things that are in response to the questions, if they're included, that people could just do that.
I actually did, I did send that out to everyone and I heard no response. So,
Well, try again. Maybe we'll get some traction on it. I think if you send it just to me,
yeah,
definitely won't get a response from everybody else.
okay, I'll try again. We'll see what happens.
And I would just like to continue my call for reminding folks that sometimes email isn't the best way to remind folks, because we get a lot of email. We all do in our lives. So sometimes to get folks' attention, a little nudge over a social media message or a phone number directly. And I'll again read my phone number into the record as 412-500-6669. So if you ever need to get a hold of me or have a question, that is the best way to do it. And it's 412-500-6669.
Thank you.
All right, so taking Billy up on recommendation, Maria, I think we'll turn it over to you for your item.
I'll actually turn it over to Morgan.
Thanks, Maria. So y'all may remember when we held our roundtable with the mayor to talk through your goals as a commission, the idea emerged to have like a social media campaign for each of you to film about a 2-minute video, just conveying your story, why you believe this commission is so important. And, overarchingly, we want people who see that to know that the commission exists, but secondly, see that there's people out here who are paving ways for folks in the community to be seen. So we'd like to kick that off as soon as possible. I don't know if there's any eager beavers in this Zoom room who would be willing to be our first video. Maria, I don't foresee it being anything, rocket science. They can just submit their own video, right? They wouldn't have to come in for like professional filming or anything. So we can start that campaign with the goal of, a video every 2 weeks, just to keep the momentum going and, convey what you all have going on in your respective work and communities. But otherwise, that's the update I wanted to share, and I'm excited to help y'all kick this off.
That's great. Thank you, Morgan. Any takers?
Not everybody jump at once. Yeah, I think it really is sort of simple, right? It's a short story of self, why we do this work, why the commission matters, and then a call to we want you at our meetings. Like we've been talking, how do we get people to know about our meetings? How do we get people to show up? I think this is a good step towards that because, I think the only people who watch us live are us who watch us live. To not be overtly blunt about it, but I think this is an opportunity to lift up the diversity of our commission and the great work that we are going to be doing, and more importantly, why do we do this work? Why are we hanging out at 7 o'clock on a Thursday night talking about this stuff for the city, right? I think it's important for us to do that, and Morgan, I'm more than happy to do a video. I'm pretty sure the mayor would be upset at me if I did not submit and be a part of this process, but I think it'd be great if some others were to lead the way, but I'm happy to go first if folks would like that as well.
Thanks, Marie, as always.
Can you give us a little more on what you envision the videos to be? You said, convey what you have going on in your respective, realms. I don't think you said realms, but that's what I'm sort of remembering.
I think Maria captured it beautifully. We want to uplift your stories. And the fact that this commission exists, why are you here? What is the work that you're trying to accomplish in this commission? And that just further validates the existence of this commission. And then people see you, they feel seen, they feel valued, and they see that Pittsburgh is actually trying to move forward. So I think what Maria just conveyed was beautiful in the essence of this. But I'm happy to just put it in a blurb in an email if, y'all are hungry and ready to eat dinner. And you can, email me once you've meditated on it.
I think if you wouldn't mind doing that, Morgan, that'd be great.
Not a problem.
I'll do it. So, whatever you need. So yeah, if you want to send that out, that'd be great. And then we can, when you need us to prompt, we can recirculate as well.
I'd be happy to do one as well, Morgan.
Thanks, y'all.
Yeah, I'll do one as well. I guess I just need a little more structure. I mean, like, is it something that you want to say what we've experienced in the past and where we are today and why the commission is important, or is it more commission focused?
Why don't Morgan and I sit together and put together a series of prompts so that way folks can respond to those prompts in their videos, and then we can go from there.
Read my
Awesome.
mind.
Thank you.
Yeah, that would be really helpful.
All right. And then Billy, I think I forgot the second item. Was that the only other item? Okay.
That's it. We're good.
Perfect. 1 minute passed. All right. Well, thanks everybody. I guess is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
All right. Have a good night.